Hi, my name is Matt Strain, and I want to show you a couple things with this. One is practically how to create a customized onboarding guide for a new employee with some nuance that you wouldn't typically have. The second thing is hopefully you'll walk away with some best practices on how to create great prompts. So with that, let's get down to it. These prompt recommendations are specific to the example, but you can extrapolate beyond that. So the first thing you want to do is tell it what role that you want it to play. So in this case, I'm going to ask it to be a human resource expert. In other cases, you might ask it to be a social media copywriter. You might ask it to be an academic. You might ask it to be a professor. So you can play around with that, and that actually gets very, very interesting. Second thing is you want to provide clear context and background for your request. So this might be background on a person, a situation, and this can go on for sentences or even paragraphs. And the more context you give it, the better the response is going to come out. It's much like as if you were talking to a person, right? The more background and history they know, the better off they are with making a recommendation. The next one is make a specific request. So if you want it to write a press release, tell it you want it to write a press release. Or if you want it to write a 10-question survey or a blog post or a headline for something. So tell it either how many words, how long, or what the structure is. And it could be a table as well. Next one is you can try different communication styles. So you can ask it to be formal, as if you were writing a letter to the government or to an official. You can ask it to be casual, as if you're writing an email to a friend. And the last thing, which I really like, is at the end of all of your different prompts, you can ask it, what could I have done to improve the prompt? Or you could ask it, what information have I forgotten to give you that I could have? Or let's say this is a proposal. So you could say, for example, is there anything that I have missed in this proposal? Or are there things I could add that would make things stronger? Or, for example, if your client was in London, you could say, are there any things for an international client in London that I should include? So those are just some examples. Let's get on with it. This prompt is actually too long, but for the sake of time, I just put it all together. So in this case, I ask it to act as an HR expert, well-versed in the working cultures of Silicon Valley and Bangalore. I then gave it specific instructions to draft an extensive onboarding guide, and then I provided some more context and explanation around what that should be. And then I also gave it some background, and as I said before, the context is really important. So in this case, it's a US-based manager with some details on the manager, as well as the new hire who's a recent grad in India. So some more context that will help the system make some recommendations. Oh, and the actual prompt series, I'm going to go over to a screen recording of what it looked like. And this is running on ChatGPT-4. You could also run it on Anthropic's Claude 2, which I'm actually liking a lot these days. That handles much larger documents. It's also free, and it is also up to date and can access the web. So with that, let's get on with it. So this is ChatGPT-4. What we're going in and pasting in the prompt that I just showed you. And within about 3 seconds, it's going to start spitting out the answer. And if you look at this in detail, you'll see it actually pulls up reference to the things that I put into the prompt, right? Talks about IIT Madras, talks about the different working cultures, gets into some high-level overview, but also some practical tips. Most of what's here, if you're in HR or you've been in the corporate world for a long time, you probably have a similar document that you could draw from. But the difference here is the level of specificity, where you get down to the nuances of some specifics of the hiring manager, of the individual being hired, taking into cultural and linguistic considerations. So you can see I threw in reference to the tech bro culture, which I probably wouldn't put in an official document, but it is interesting to see that it accommodates that and it does address what could be a potential issue. Next, I've asked it to write a welcome letter from the hiring manager to the new hire. And with this, you can change tone. You can make it more casual, more formal. You can make it longer. You can ask for it to be shorter. So there are all kinds of ways that you can modify. And what you would typically do is get a first draft, maybe have it modified a little bit, and then people would download it and obviously check it and make it their own. And in this, because there is such a big cultural difference in a manager who's inexperienced, we've asked it just to go through in a little more detail and address some of the cultural issues. This next prompt does draw on some of my personal experience where I did manage a team in India. And the prompt was, India is a land of many holidays. Would you please draft an overview of each major holiday and what would be appropriate for a manager to say or give at each of the holidays? There are religious holidays and you've got, several different religions within the country. You've got national holidays, you've got local holidays. So this actually would have been very helpful for me just to understand what is the significance of the holiday, what is culturally the appropriate thing to do in a work setting to say or give between colleagues. This next one is more about resources that the manager could use. It said draft an informal letter that the manager can send to the new employee suggesting articles, books, documentaries, or TV shows that would help her understand the Silicon Valley culture. And again, like all the others, you can modify this, you can fine tune it, you can identify different aspects of Silicon Valley culture that you want to highlight. And you can also, depending on the model, ask it to provide links. And as the last one, I'm basically asking it, what have I missed? Are there things that I should have asked but didn't? And it comes back with a pretty decent list, right? It asks about relocation assistance, understanding individual preferences. Are there mentorship programs that the company might have? Employee well-being programs, professional development. So, you may or may not have thought of these, but I like this approach because it provides you with a good checklist. Okay, to wrap this up, here's what the formula for the onboarding prompt could look like. And again, you should modify this and, tweak it as you go through it. Roughly, you tell it what you want it to be, act as an HR expert that is well-versed in the working cultures of, in this case, I picked 2 regions. You could also do it with 2 industries. Draft an onboarding guide. That's what I wanted to do. And then I tell it what I wanted to include. That includes any language and cultural differences that might create misunderstandings. I wanted to create a checklist of the top 10 things that this new manager should do as part of the onboarding process. And then a list of valuable resources for the new employee. I could be more specific. Is that articles? Is it movies? Is it, something else? And then context here is really important. So tell it about the hiring manager. I put in things like the gender, age, personality description, if known, MBTI, it should be, that's Myers-Briggs, work experience, field of study, similar things for the new hire. And that's essentially it, right? So you should play with this. You should tell it how long you want it to be. If there are other things in there, you should put those in. I hope you found this helpful. And if you did, I would love to hear about it. And if you didn't, I would still love to hear about it. My contact info should be in the description below. So thank you and good luck.